When we think of Wuthering Heights *, we think of an eternal, sweeping romance. But if you closely watch the final moments of Emerald Fennell's 2026 adaptation, something shifts. The tragedy isn't just that love was lost, it's how the narrative choice of where to cut the thread alters the very DNA of Emily Brontë's classic. Most people walked out of the theatre overwhelmed by the raw grief of Jacob Elordi's Heathcliff. Yet, if you look beneath the surface of that final sequence, the film is doing something far more deliberate. It is hiding a radical restructuring in plain sight, using a singular creative departure to reshape a 150-year-old story into something entirely contemporary. Welcome back to Movizo. Today we are breaking down the haunting, polarizing ending of 2026's Wuthering Heights *. Fennell's adaptation has divided critics, but its final moments hold the key to understanding this modern vision of a Victorian ghost story. Let's unwrap the clues left in the moors. The first major clue lies in a sequence of events that feels breathlessly sudden. Catherine, portrayed by Margot Robbie, becomes pregnant with her husband Edgar's child. In retaliation, or perhaps sheer despair, Heathcliff marries Isabella. The emotional fallout spirals rapidly. Cathy sinks into a deep depression, and complications from a miscarriage ultimately prove fatal. In a traditional narrative, this would be the second act turning point. But here, Fennell treats it as the destination. Heathcliff races against time, arriving too late, only to find Cathy already gone. It initially seems like a standard tragic beat, but the choice to stop the clock right here is the first indication that this film is chasing something different than the adaptations that came before it. To understand why this matters, we have to look at what the film quietly omits. In Bronte's original 1847 novel, Heathcliff actually makes it to Catherine before she passes. Furthermore, her pregnancy doesn't end in a miscarriage. She gives birth to a daughter, also named Cathy. The book then spirals into a decades-long, generational tragedy about the bitter aftermath of loss. Even previous cinematic versions that focused strictly on the core romance usually pushed past Cathy's death to depict Heathcliff's eventual demise and their supernatural spiritual reunion. Fennell's version has absolutely no interest in that spiritual closure. Instead, it flashes back to a childhood moment of Cathy and Heathcliff, frozen in time, before anchoring us strictly to the image of Heathcliff clinging to a lifeless body. By severing the generational cycle and denying us a ghostly reunion, the film connects directly to a devastating theme, the illusion that there is always more time, until abruptly there isn't. The definitive moment of the film, its biggest emotional gut punch, comes when Heathcliff cries out for Cathy to haunt him for the rest of his days. On a surface level, it is a devastating expression of romantic grief, but deeper down, this choice completely recenters the narrative architecture. In the novel, this curse is a passing, fleeting moment. In the 2026 film, it becomes the absolute climax. By ending the entire story on this specific agony, the film elevates a Victorian melodrama into a laser-focused Shakespearean tragedy. It forces the audience to sit in the unresolved weight of his grief, making the curse of her ghost his permanent state of being. This structural change completely reshapes our understanding of Cathy's role in the story. Historically, Wuthering Heights * operates at a distance from its heroine. The book uses a frame story narrated by the servant Nellie, a device this film entirely discards. By choosing to end the movie precisely at Cathy's death, Fennell effectively centers her. The entire narrative arc is bound to her lifespan. This puts an immense pressure on the film's first half. For the ending to achieve its epic weight, the audience must be emotionally invested in Cathy as a living, breathing force, rather than just viewing her through the lens of Heathcliff's obsession. Her death isn't just his ruin, it is the boundary line of the film's universe. What's interesting here is how the film balances nostalgia with modernization. One possible reading is that Fennell deliberately chose to evoke the styling of a bygone era of cinema, precisely to subvert it in the final frames. The story seems to suggest that true love isn't always a peaceful, transcendent force that conquers death, but something heavy, final, and inherently trapped in history. By leaving Heathcliff alone in his mourning, the film transforms their romance from a timeless myth into a visceral, contemporary tragedy of mistiming. By cutting out the second half of the book and the spiritual reunion of the lovers, do you think this adaptation honors the true essence of Heathcliff and Cathy, or did it sacrifice the deeper meaning of Bronte's generational tragedy? Ultimately, the 2026 Wuthering Heights will be remembered for the way it traps its characters in their darkest hour. Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie's defining image isn't a bittersweet afterlife, but a hauntingly permanent grief on the moors, a detail that was hiding in the subtext of the novel all along. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the secrets behind the screen, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Movizo, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next breakdown.